Right now, somewhere beneath the ocean, there are tens of thousands of steel boxes lying on the seafloor. Some hold sneakers, some hold furniture, some hold cars, and at least one of them held 28,000 rubber ducks, which are still washing up on beaches more than 30 years later. The shipping industry says only a few hundred containers fall overboard each year. Ocean scientists say the real number could be 20 times higher. And until this year, 2026, no one was even legally required to count. This is the story of where the world's lost cargo actually goes. Roughly 250 million containers cross the oceans every year, and almost all of them arrive. Almost. Because the ocean has a few tricks that no engineer has fully solved. The first is obvious: storms. Waves in the North Pacific can tower over 15 meters, taller than a 4-story building, slamming into ships for days at a time. But the most dangerous threat has a stranger name: parametric rolling. Under very specific wave conditions, a container ship begins to rock side to side, and instead of settling, each roll feeds the next one. Within minutes, a ship can be swinging 30 or even 40 degrees, like a metronome the size of 4 football fields. The forces at the top of those container stacks become enormous. Lashings snap, twist locks shear, and entire towers of cargo, hundreds of boxes at a time, peel off the deck and crash into the sea. That's exactly what happened in November 2020, when a ship called the One Apus hit severe weather in the middle of the Pacific. In a single night, it lost nearly 1,800 containers. One ship, one storm. One of the largest cargo losses in history. And here's the part the shipping lines don't advertise. Sometimes the storm isn't really to blame. Every container that gets loaded has a declared weight on its paperwork. Heavy boxes are supposed to go on the bottom of the stack, light ones on top. But shipping lines can't physically open and check thousands of sealed boxes. They have to trust the paperwork, and the paperwork lies. One inspection study found that nearly 70% of containers declared as dangerous goods had documentation or safety problems. So picture a stack where a light container at the top secretly weighs 3 times what it claims. In calm seas, nothing happens. In a storm, that stack becomes a tower built upside down, and physics collects its debt. So a container goes over the side. What happens in the next 60 seconds? The answer depends entirely on what's inside. A box full of steel pipes drops like a stone straight down, sometimes 4 or 5 kilometers, hitting the seafloor at highway speed. But a sealed container full of light cargo, clothes, toys, packaging foam, does something far more sinister. It floats. Not on the surface where you could see it. Containers are designed to be weathertight, so a buoyant one drifts just at or below the waterline. A 20-ton steel ram, invisible at night, invisible in rough seas, invisible on radar. Sailors have a name for these: ghost containers, and for small vessels, they are a nightmare scenario. Yachts crossing oceans have been found with their hulls split open and no explanation. Some racing sailors consider drifting containers among the most feared hazards on the water, precisely because there's no way to see one coming. A floating container can drift for days. Some, depending on the cargo, may stay buoyant for weeks, riding ocean currents hundreds of kilometers from where they fell until seawater finally finds a way in, and the box begins its long, dark trip to the bottom. And this is where the story gets strange, because once a container reaches the seafloor, it doesn't just disappear. It becomes something new. In 2004, a ship called the Med Taipei lost containers in a storm off the coast of California. One of them landed inside the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, one of the most closely studied patches of ocean on Earth. Scientists found it sitting on the seabed, and they made an unusual decision. They left it there, and they watched it. For years, researchers sent robotic submarines down to that one container, documenting what happened. The box had crushed everything beneath it when it landed. But over time, deep-sea life began treating it like a reef, a hard surface in a world of soft mud. New species moved in. The wrong species, in some cases, animals that wouldn't normally live on that part of the seafloor, now colonizing a steel island that will sit there for centuries. Multiply that by every container ever lost, and you get a seabed quietly dotted with accidental monuments. Each one a tiny, unplanned experiment. But sometimes the cargo doesn't stay on the bottom. Sometimes it comes back. In January 1992, a ship crossing the Pacific lost a container holding 28,000 plastic bath toys, including thousands of yellow rubber ducks. The box broke open, and the ducks set sail. They have been washing ashore ever since: Alaska, Hawaii, South America. Some ducks rode currents through the Arctic and turned up on beaches in the Atlantic, on the other side of the planet. Oceanographers realized they had been handed a free accidental science experiment. Thousands of floating tracers mapping ocean currents better than any instrument. The drift of those bath toys helped researchers refine models of how the entire ocean moves. It happened again with a container of Nike sneakers. Beachcombers and scientists tracked them ashore for years. And off the coast of Cornwall in England, a container spilled nearly 5 million pieces of Lego into the sea in 1997. People still find them on those beaches today. And in a twist nobody could script, many of the pieces were ocean-themed. Tiny plastic octopuses and dragons washing out of the actual ocean decades later. Which brings us to the question this entire video is built on. How many containers actually fall? Ask the industry, and you get a reassuring answer. The World Shipping Council, representing about 90% of global container capacity, publishes a yearly count. In 2023, it reported just 221 containers lost, the lowest number ever recorded. In 2024, the figure rose to 576. Still, that is far below the long-term average of around 1,300 a year out of 250 million boxes shipped. That is a loss rate of roughly 1 in a million. Incredible, right? Maybe. Because ask ocean scientists, and you get a very different answer. American ocean agencies have estimated the true number could be as high as 10,000 containers a year. How can two estimates be 20 times apart? Because for decades, reporting was essentially voluntary. A container that slips quietly off a deck at night in international waters, carrying nothing hazardous. Who would ever know? There is no debris field, no investigation, no headline. The ocean keeps the secret, and the paperwork stays clean. The official numbers also tend to capture the big famous disasters, while the slow, steady trickle of one-box, two-box losses scattered across thousands of voyages can simply evaporate from the record. The honest answer to how many containers are lost at sea is this: nobody knows. And that might be the most remarkable fact in this entire story. In an industry tracked by satellites, sensors, and AI, thousands of 20-ton steel boxes can simply vanish without a trace. But that era is ending. Right now, Starting in 2026, new international maritime rules make reporting mandatory. For the first time in history, every lost container must be officially declared. The black box of ocean shipping is finally being opened. And within a few years, we may learn the real number, whether it is closer to 500 or closer to 10,000. The industry is not waiting idly either. Researchers have spent years studying exactly how stacks fail, feeding into smarter lashing systems and better stowage rules. New regulations target some of the riskiest cargo, and ships are getting better at predicting and steering around the precise wave conditions that trigger parametric rolling. The losses will never reach zero. As long as humans send floating skyscrapers of cargo through the planet's worst weather, the ocean will take its percentage. But the next time you are standing on a beach, look down. That weathered piece of plastic by your feet might not be ordinary litter. It might be a traveler escaped from a steel box in the middle of the ocean years ago and thousands of kilometers away, finally finishing a journey no one ever planned. The ocean floor is covered in lost cargo, and we are only just beginning to count it. But here is the thing. Falling into the ocean is not even the strangest fate a piece of cargo can meet. The packages that get returned, refused, or abandoned end up somewhere even weirder. Mystery warehouses where entire pallets of unopened goods are sold to the highest bidder.